Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. I'm your host, George Kurth, here with the man who likes blue and green in his background instead of gold and green. That's Cody Roadcap. Cody, why are your lights not gold?
Well, blue because the Couch GMs the main color is blue. Then I had to throw some green in there because we know I represent the green and gold every day. It's good to be back on the podcast. Missing the beach. I'm sure you are too. Definitely
Yes.
check out last week's episode when all three of us were together. But this one's going to be a fun one. Another mock draft as the preseason is upon us and about to get football back for a very long time.
Really looking forward to that. We actually have a game to recap this week as well. We're going to have a little bit of a touch on the Hall of Fame game, which is barely a preseason game, but it's nice to see actual football being played. And like
Sure.
Cody said, yes, we are going to do a little bit of a mock draft as we are getting into more peak fantasy draft season. I mean, I hope you guys are waiting another week or two to do your drafts, but this is the perfect time to do a lot of your draft prep because not a lot of things are going to change between now and draft season. Be sure to check out the results of this mock draft and more on our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the Couch GMs and on thecouchgms.com. But with no further ado, why don't we jump into some NFL news for the week? And Cody, like I said, Hall of Fame game happened last week. We had some real meaningful football. Do you want to highlight a couple of things that you saw from last week that may be good for fantasy owners to know?
For sure. Like George mentioned, the Hall of Fame game is fun. The speeches for the people that are getting inducted the next day sometimes are better. Charles Woodson had a great one. Peyton Manning's always fun. I don't know. Did you see him tell the story about how Eli steals his phone and puts it in different languages? Like
Mm-hmm.
even at like 40-plus-year-olds, we all see the brothers are still having fun. But back to actual football, it was the Steelers, it was the Cowboys. Not a lot of starters played. Zeke didn't play. Tony Pollard did get some. So, we talk about in the preseason, sometimes it's more important who doesn't play compared to who does. I wouldn't read too much into it, but I do expect Zeke to have a pretty high workload this year. That's why he's being drafted in the top 5 in fantasy drafts. But the two rookies, Najee Harris on offense, he showed skills for all 3 downs. Definitely had some nice catches out of the backfield. Definitely showed his downhill runner. Showed why he was a first-round pick. And then not so much for fantasy news, but because we are here in Pennsylvania, have to show some love to the Penn State Nittany Lion, Micah Parsons, rookie for the Dallas Cowboys. This dude was all over the place, sideline to sideline. We're so used to Sean Lee in Dallas. He was always all over the place. A linebacker obviously couldn't stay healthy near the end of his career. It's going to be fun to watch another top level talent linebacker down in Dallas. As much as I dislike the Cowboys, Micah Parsons is a guy I'll have my eye on most Sundays.
Definitely agree. I mean, it hurts me having him as a Cowboy. It's almost similar to Saquon Barkley going to the New York Giants as an Eagles fan. It hurts, but a little bit of Penn State pride here for us from Pennsylvania. But why don't we move on here to
And I need to
some
get for the
other
record,
news?
I don't even like Penn State. Just for the record. Nope,
Okay,
not my school.
no.
Can't do it. They're about as bad as Notre Dame in my book. But
Ooh,
yep, I said it. Hot take right there.
if you
But I'm
remember
sorry for
back
cutting you
to
off.
if you remember back to earlier in the offseason, we had a heck of a debate about schools and the U, and I just hit my microphone, and Notre Dame. That was a whole thing. But anyway, big news happened just after we recorded last week. Josh Allen, Bills quarterback, got a huge contract extension. I think it averaged out to about $48 million a year, $150 million guaranteed over 6 years. So he's sticking around in Buffalo for a long time. He's going to be one of the highest paid quarterbacks for a long time. Lamar Jackson or Baker Mayfield might be next. We don't know. I know there's some talks of them guys getting a deal done before the season. A lot of people think they're going to wait till after. What do you think of the Allen deal, and who do you think's next, Cody?
Ooh, I'll start with the first part on the Allen deal. I think it makes a ton of sense. He definitely got the money that he deserved after his near MVP performance last year. Some people might even say he deserved the MVP. Uh, he definitely deserved the money. And remember, when you see contracts like that, we'll say, it 6 years, 258 million. But the number you want to look for the most is guarantees. And if you break that 150 down across 6 years, he's right up there. at $25 million. So that's how much guaranteed money he has throughout the 6 years of his contract. I'm sure a lot of those guarantees will go off by year 3, maybe year 4. Um, so I think it was smart for the Bills. It looks like he is paid 40 some $1 million, just up there with Dak and Patrick Mahomes. But at the end of the day, it's really only 25 mil guaranteed a year over the life of the contract. So great deal for both sides. Glad that one got done. Who gets it next? That's so tough for me because I feel like Lamar deserves the contract next, but there's a part of me that still like think the Ravens are hesitant to give him a second contract, is electrifying as he is. Um, but there's that shadow over running first quarterbacks. Um, I know Snyder, who's not here tonight, he would, talk about how Lamar Jackson can't throw. I do think he has some throwing ability. I'm not saying he's a Josh Allen thrower of the football, but he does have an arm to play in the NFL. Um, so I'm going to lean towards Baker, but I know their contract negotiations haven't gone very well. So we could see next offseason, and they'll probably get more than Josh Allen and more than Patrick Mahomes because that's how the NFL likes to work. The next man up gets the most amount of money.
Although I think Mahomes still leads it in average value, if I'm not mistaken. But I could see Lamar being the one who you consider most deserving. He's been the more flashy quarterback. He won an MVP. But I almost think Lamar is smarter waiting a little longer, especially at least for this season, because they're trying to build that passing offense around him, bet on himself a little bit. He might be able to cash in even bigger if he shows that he can throw the ball better this year. Baker, I feel like you kind of know what you got out of Baker. He's good. He's by far the best quarterback that Cleveland has had in decades. But you kind of see what you're going to get out of him. He's going to be a solid quarterback. He's going to make that team a contender, but he's not necessarily a top 3 quarterback. Not by any means. So you could see Baker cash in on money after a strong playoff run first. I think Lamar's more deserving. Another one to note is the Cardinals did come out after that Josh Allen signing and say they hope Kyler Murray takes some big steps this year and he gets an Allen-like deal next year, similar to how Allen had his breakout season, then got an extension. Cardinals hoping Kyler does the same thing this year, the extension next offseason.
Hey, that would be big for Kyler Murray. And, the beat writer, Michael F. Florio, put out a whole thread on things he's hearing about the Arizona Cardinals that we shared over on the Twitter at the Couch GMs. On the Twitter. I'm pretty sure that's
On the
not how you
Twitter.
say it, but over
On
on the
our
Twitter.
Twitter.
Yeah, at the Couch GMs. But some key points for that is just like Chase Edmonds and James Conner might be splitting more than we thought. James Conner could have some goal line touches, which might make him more valuable than Chase Edmonds, even though a lot of people were higher on Chase Edmonds. So I would definitely encourage you to check out that thread and keep a close eye on the Cardinals preseason games if you're targeting any of those guys. It might be a year too early to extend Kyler Murray, but it's always better to sign him early before 5 new guys get signed and outpace their contracts, and then you're stuck in a situation like Devontae Adams. I got to bring it back to the Green Bay Packers, but how DeAndre Hopkins averages $5 million more than the number 2 wide receiver, and that's a big hangup in their contract negotiations. So I don't blame the Cardinals for trying to get that one done. We'll have to wait and see. We talked about some good things in contract extensions, guys who might be next. Now we have to talk about some sad news, injury news. Speaking of Lamar Jackson, one of those guys that he was gearing up to throw the ball to a lot this year was first round pick Rashad Bateman. He went down with a non-contact injury in practice the other day. Early reports didn't look good. They seem to get some positive news that it's just a groin, nothing structural is damaged. He could be week to week, and they're hoping that he'll be back for week 1. If he misses it, it should be a quick turnaround because they'll give him as much time as they need to rest. Ravens escape a blow there. On the positive side, though, the Carson Wentz and Quentin Nelson are trending towards being available week 1. So your Colts fans out there, James Taylor owners, Jonathan Taylor. James Taylor was an older running back. Man, I'm still in vacation mode. Give me a break. Give me a break.
I got you.
But and then Carson Wentz, I know they're hopeful for. But did you see that rookie quarterback Sam Ellinger was actually taking first team snaps over second round pick Jacob Eason last year? So if Carson doesn't get back, there could be a little bit of quarterback drama, in Indianapolis.
I did see that they were actually letting the two duke it out for the backup job, essentially. So I would assume the winner of the backup job would get the week one start, maybe even beyond if Carson Wentz cannot go. Everyone thought it was Jacob Easton season, but Sam Ellinger
Hook,
peeking his nose in there.
hook 'em horns, hook 'em horns. Uh,
But good.
oh, I was gonna cut George off. He wanted to go, but I'll move on to the next injury news. A guy that seems to always be on the injury list, and that is tight end Hunter Henry. He is a top level talent that can't seem to stay healthy. Again, another week to week injury. This one is the shoulder. Don't be too alarmed with this one. I think he'll be back by week one. And also something to keep in mind as we go through injury news, especially the next couple weeks. Teams are going to be extra cautious with players because they can still be around for team meetings. They can still do walkthroughs. It is training camp. They're going to hold guys out, especially guys like Hunter Henry, who's going to be a big part of the Patriots in the regular season. So I expect them to give him as much time as he needed. I'm not too worried about that one. But I did see that Jonnu Smith has looked really well in the Patriots camp. And I could be completely wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure I did see a tweet from someone up in New England that they've lined him up at running back for a couple plays. So I don't know what that means with Jonnu Smith at running back, but leave it to Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick to have, a tight end playing running back and, starting something new in the NFL. So that would be definitely fun to see. But with this new injury,
What that tells me two things. One, do not trust anybody in the Patriots backfield. I already hate drafting anybody in the Patriots backfield. Two, Patriots could be fun to watch again. And I would love to see Jonnu Smith taking goal line carries at running back. That'd be amazing.
just imagine it, the triple option with Cam Newton, Jonnu Smith at fullback, and then Damian Harris at running back from 2 yards out. How are you stopping that?
Who do you stop?
Yeah, I don't know. That'll be a fun one to watch. With the injury news, though, I would definitely take Johnny Smith over Hunter Henry. Um, but honestly, both those tight ends are probably getting drafted late in the round, so they're pretty much flyers just because of the quarterback situation. And then if we got to talk about the Patriots, we got to talk about the team that beat them twice in the Super Bowl, and that is the New York Giants. They got some good news that Saquon Barkley is officially off the PUP list, which I was a little surprised he came off so quickly after last week. We talked about how he might not even be ready for week one. Now he thinks he might be ready for week one. They're still not 100% sure. They're going to be extra cautious. Just put Saquon Barkley up there with who knows. So hard to read. If you have the 5 or 6 spot and he's sitting there, I don't envy you. That's definitely a tough decision on what to do because you can get him and he could end up being RB1, or you can get him and he won't play till week 4 and then never fully recover. So definitely one to watch out, but he is back practicing off the PUP and his quads still look pretty big. Take that for what it is.
If his quads still look big, I'm still leaning taking him as the 5th pick in the draft. That's all I'll say. I know, just like you said, though, I envy that 5th, 6th pick. I have one of those picks in one of my leagues coming up, and watching news closely, looking at mocks, seeing if hopefully one of those top 4 fall down to me. But right now, I'd be leaning Saquon 5, especially with him coming off the pup list. Well, you know what the NFL stands for, Cody?
I do. The No
What is
Fun
it?
League.
There you go. I'm glad you said it right. The No Fun League will be cracking down on taunting calls in 2021 per report. So that's lame.
Super lame.
We're taking personality out of the game again. We brought back celebrations, and now all of a sudden we're going to start cracking down on taunting. So I feel like some of the celebrations are going to get flagged again. It's just me. I don't know.
Well, did you see? I think it was at the Broncos, I think, are having a joint practice with the Minnesota Vikings as we record this podcast. So they have some officials there because the officials need training camp too. And I can't pronounce the wide receiver's name because he's so far on the Broncos or so low on the Broncos depth chart. He caught a.
Someone like Olamide Zaccheaus?
It's not that complicated. It starts with
Oh, okay.
the D. I just don't really want to look it up at the moment. But he caught a ball over Cameron Dantzler, who was a high pick for the Vikings last year, and then spun the ball on the ground in front of him after making the catch, and the refs threw the flag. So literally, if we're going to start calling this ticky-tack of stuff, it's going to be like the roughing the passer a few weeks, how it was all called. The NFL officials are going to take over. Hopefully by week 4, they're like, okay, maybe we shouldn't call this as much. Maybe we should let some of this slide and only for like the super egregious. This rule, in all honesty, like I don't mean to like rant here, but it is like the dumbest thing in football. We're couch GMs, but we still like to go out and play backyard football, backyard sports. Even last week when we were on the beach, we were playing touch football and it got heated. You scored a touchdown. You like to throw your hands up. You like, Tyler and George make fun of me. Apparently, I have this like mean stare. If I catch something over you, I'll just stare into your soul. Well, I probably get flagged for that.
My soul is still hurt.
Exactly. And, it's a part of the game. It's a part of the competition. They're playing at 100 miles an hour, and it's a little bit of fun. Like, this one doesn't make any sense for me. There's so many rules that they could improve, like, the actual replay process on how that's, slowing down the game. And if it's not able to be overturned in the first 3 watches, like, move on. Like, but to get ticky tacky with the taunting rules, especially when like
Hmm.
there really hasn't been, off the top of my head, over the last 5 years, anyone that has really snapped back or got into a fight over a taunting rule. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure Tyreek Hill didn't appreciate it when Antoine Winfield gave him the peace sign after he did it to them when the
But
Chiefs.
did the DB appreciate it when Tyreek Hill did it to him on the way
No,
in
that's what I'm
earlier
saying.
in the season? Like, yeah.
It's a part of football. The NFL, what are you doing? Like, thank you for bringing back the IR rules. The 3-week IR like you did for the COVID season. Unlimited people, the practice squad rules. Those are great. Those rules improved the game. This rule has no effect on the game. It makes the product not as fun to watch. And please don't call that many penalties on it, because at the end of the day, taunting is some of the most fan entertainment part about the NFL. Like, every time, if a cornerback, makes a stop and like puts his hands up like incomplete, is that now taunting? Like, I don't understand that this rule. We need to move on because I'm getting
Yeah.
more and more frustrated as I think about all the dumb things that could happen. And I swear, if they throw the flag when Aaron Rodgers hits somebody with the belt, I'm gonna lose it.
Clay Matthews got flagged for roughing the passer during this conversation. Uh,
For
let's
sure.
get on to trade watch. We got a couple of people that are looking out for trades. I'll start with backup quarterback for the Raiders, Marcus Mariota. I think I said it right. Tyler would be proud of me. We talked about him as a potential trade candidate in the offseason. Apparently, he's still keeping an eye out for a starting quarterback job. I guess that probably came out because of the whole Carson Wentz news with the injury. There's still a chance that before the trade deadline, he gets traded to a team to be a starting quarterback. And I'm sure after this season, you could see him hunting more. He did play well in limited time last year, so we'll see if anything comes of it. Anyway, Jacksonville Jaguars first round pick from 2020, cornerback CJ Henderson. He is apparently being shopped. Some of the top teams I saw in that sweepstakes were the Arizona Cardinals and the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll see if the Jags can get anything out of that that's close to their first round pick that they spent on him last season. And the big one that I want Cody to chime in on a little bit would be Michael Thomas, Saints wide receiver, who is out right now because of his ankle surgery. He apparently has not been in contact with the Saints since the whole comment from the coaching staff that this surgery should have happened sooner. And now there's rumors that he wants out and he may be traded. I don't know if I see Michael Thomas moving. It might honestly be in the Saints' best interest to move on from him because I feel like they're going to have to go into a rebuild or a retool at this point with how much cap trouble they were in just coming into this season. Where do you think some top landing spots for Michael Thomas could be if this starts to progress anymore?
Um, I will answer that, but I want to touch real quick on CJ Henderson. A lot of this seems to lead more towards off the field issues compared to the talent on the field. But he is now back at practice. So the Jags are encouraged that they'll be able to keep him. But he is available if, a team offers, a decent amount. He played really well for a rookie too. So I don't expect him to get moved. But the Saints were a team that might be interested, especially after Patrick Robinson just retired. So I know I've seen a lot of Michael Thomas for CJ Henderson and add some picks in there. Getting Michael Thomas back with Urban Meyer because he spent time with him when he was at Ohio State. I'm sure Michael Thomas doesn't really want to be in New Orleans anymore. Drew Brees left. They're going through. Sean Payton is, an offensive genius, a lot of people say, but when you go from Drew Brees to Taysom Hill or Jameis Winston, I can understand why you want to leave, especially a guy like Jameis Winston who's going to push the ball down the field. And Michael Thomas is so used to running 5-yard ins and slants. Like, not taking away from anything. I know that kind of sounded a little condescending, but that's his. Michael Thomas, thrives in the short yardage game. That's where he became elite. Multiple catches, super solid on third down to pick up a first down. So maybe he'll want to go to a team with a guy like Trevor Lawrence and help bring up that rookie, or he'll go to another team that just needs the extra guy to put him over the top. He does have quite the big contract number. Um, Definitely interested to see. It is surprising to me how Michael Thomas has fallen from grace, I guess you could say. How 2 years ago he was the clear cut number one fantasy wide receiver. You were considering him as the number one pick overall over running backs, even because of how dominant he was. And then the injuries
broke a record.
And then how fast Drew Brees, his arm just gave out over the last 2 seasons, and he wasn't that top guy. I do think a new change of scenery for Michael Thomas. I guess I'm going to say the Jags might be my favorite fit for him, but he'll probably end up in the Patriots or the Chiefs just because that's how these trades seem to go.
Definitely. But we'll keep an eye out and see if anything else moves on with the Michael Thomas news. And we'll also see how his injury is progressing when we get some news and see how long we think he's going to miss this season, regardless of where he plays. But I think it's good to end this news segment here with a couple of camp notes. First thing, we talked about a tight end in Hunter Henry who may be starting to fall down the draft boards. We have a tight end who I know and love that is starting to move up the draft boards, and that would be Dan Arnold, now with the Carolina Panthers. The word is Sam Darnold to Dan Arnold is getting rave reviews in camp. So I'm just looking forward to hearing the Darnold Arnold talk. I don't know about you, Cody.
Yeah, Darnold to D Arnold. There's gonna be some fun news to talk about in camp. Hopefully, because Sam Darnold is currently my only quarterback in my dynasty league. Uh, Oops.
Ooh.
Hopefully, he does have a breakout season. So definitely pulling
Um,
for that one. But other quarterbacks that are battling, the Broncos have Drew Lock starting preseason 1. We'll have Bridgewater start in preseason game 2. I know their unofficial depth chart came out this past week before the preseason game, and they were listed as co-starters. So definitely a clear competition going on in Denver. But speaking of unofficial depth charts, just a quick PSA reminder that any unofficial depth chart you see between now and week 1 is made by the PR team, not a coach. Someone on their digital website is putting this together based on what they see in practice. Not Vic Fangio isn't making depth charts for them to put on the internet. So take every unofficial depth chart you see with a grain of salt. That's it for news and notes, though, for this week. There was a lot of them. I know we've been talking them quick, so we're going to hit through a couple of our new favorite segment, Quotes of the Week.
Quotes of the week. We're going to start off here. We'll go a little bit fast so we can get to our mock draft. Mitch Trubisky, now of the Buffalo Bills. He said in this offseason about talking about his next team, he said, "At first I wanted to go to a spot where I could compete for a starting position, but the right position did not come up and the opportunity wasn't there. It's really nice to be a part of a great team and be somewhere where people want you here. They care about how you're progressing as a person and as a player." That's a big hit at Matt Nagy and the Bears if I ever saw one. Mitch
Suck it,
Trubisky did
Chicago.
not feel loved in Chicago, feels loved as the backup there in Buffalo, despite his number one getting signed to a big contract. And Cody got his little jab in at the Bears, so I think we're good there. Kyle Shanahan talking about rookie quarterback Trey Lance. He said situationally he's going to get plays. That doesn't mean that he's going to be a starter or anything, but he's going to get plays, and you've got to prepare for him in every way possible. This could be a cop-out to try to get people to prepare for a two-quarterback system, but I think it's pretty clear that they love Trey Lance there. Trey Lance has been performing very well in camp, and he should get a start at some point this season. But I think
Kyle.
the 49ers coaching staff wants people to start preparing for a two-quarterback system to try to make their offense look a little bit more scary.
For sure. Kyle Shanahan, this is from Cody at the Couch GMs podcast, I know you're listening. Please, no more hype of Trey Lance until at least after Friday. I have a dynasty draft. I just told you I only have Sam Darnold. I need Trey Lance in my life. Please, no more talk. Jimmy Garoppolo, starting quarterback. You heard it here first. Anyone in my dynasty league?
We'll leave it there. I'll hope for the best for you there,
Thank you,
Cody.
thank you.
You're welcome. uh, Bengals rookie wide receiver Jamar Chase talking about his slow training camp start. I'm taking the role of Cody here for this one. He said, quote, Rome was not built in a day. That is what apparently one of his rookie teammates told him. And Joe Burrow said, keep a level head, saying that they were both out for a year and they have to come back completely different, stronger, and faster. The main thing is about being on the same time and getting our stuff together. A little bit of a grammar error there from Jamar Chase, but we'll let it slide. Burrow is basically just trying to keep Jamar Chase's head up, and it's been a slow start, but Jamar Chase was a holdout from college in 2020, so I'm not shocked if it's going to take him a few weeks to get back up to speed, but I'm not worried about him being the best rookie receiver in this class.
Me neither, and there's a lot of good receivers in Cincinnati. He doesn't have to step onto the scene and be the number one guy. They still have T. Higgins, who is their second round, 33rd pick last year, so pretty much first round. And then they still have Tyler Boyd, who is very underrated. Uh, I love the three-headed monster there in Cincinnati. I can wait for Jamar Chase. Maybe if you're drafting him in fantasy, don't expect a lot out of him the first couple weeks. But if you're still haven't done your rookie draft, feel free to take Jamar Chase. He definitely high caliber guy. And then I'm going to do the last quote because George is stealing all the fun with these quotes. We talked about the contract extensions earlier between Lamar and Baker. He was asked about it this week, and he said, hey, I'm not doing the negotiation. So quite frankly, I don't give a damn, or I don't give a bleep. I don't know if damn considers us to now have to click the explicit tag. Hopefully not. We should get one free one of those. So Baker Mayfield is clearly locked in on 2021, and he should be because the Cleveland Browns on paper are a top 3 team in the AFC and could make a Super Bowl run this season. But George, I know that's your favorite segment, but I think my favorite segment is coming up. So let's get into a mock draft. Alrighty, well, it's time to mock draft. I know we've done a few of these in the past, a few things that are different from the last couple. This one is only 10 teams. We've been doing a lot of 12-team mock drafts, but we wanted to shake it up a little bit, go with 10 teams. George and I will each have our own team, which is also different from the last time we did it. So a little head-to-head mock draft option. There'll be 12 rounds, no kickers and defenses, because here at the Couch GMs, we advocate for pick your kickers and defenses or don't take a kicker at all in the fantasy draft. So we're just going to get rid of those. So we're going to have not two quarterbacks, not even close. We're going to have one quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, a tight end, flex, and 5 bench spots. It'll be half point PPR, so keep that in your mind. Before the show, we did a little bit of a random number generator to determine the draft spot. I got pick number 2, which isn't that great. And Tyler is not here, so he is not mock drafting. But George got pick number 9. A little envious of him. I definitely like the turnaround this year based on my research. But we will have the board on the screen. George and I are in the draft. I'm going to go ahead and get started. And no surprise, Christian McCaffrey went number 1, which leaves me with the decision. I think I had the number 2 pick when Snyder and I did do a mock draft, and I had the same decision on my hand. It's either Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry. For me, other thing to keep in mind is we do have 5 minutes to make each pick while we talk about them back and forth, and then George can criticize my pick after I make it here. I love Dalvin Cook, but you know what? Since Snyder's not here and I take Dalvin Cook a lot, let's just see what teams I can get if I don't go that direction. So I will go Derrick Henry and prioritize volume over the PPR upgrade that Dalvin Cook is, but also have a little bit less of an injury risk. So I'm going to go with Derrick Henry here with pick number 2. Surprisingly,
Wow.
Saquon Barkley at 3, Jonathan Taylor 4, Dalvin Cook 5, Alvin Kamara 6, Ezekiel Elliott went 7, and Tyreek Hill was the first wide receiver. Pick 9 or pick 8, and then now George is on the clock at pick 9. Definitely can't even read the board that is right in front of me, so make sure you're checking it out on YouTube. Little surprise there with the Saquon Barkley reach and the Jonathan Taylor. Dalvin Cook sliding all the way till 5. I know I don't like the 5th pick in any draft this year, but if Dalvin Cook fell to me at 5, I would be screaming. So great value there. But George, you're on the clock. What do you think?
All right, so I also like this turn kind of pick here. I'm not right on the turn at pick 10, but pick 9 is nice. First thing I'm looking at, Travis Kelce. This is around where I would want to take him. I mean, if I have pick 10 and he's on the board, I think I definitely want to take him because I know then I can get my running back of choice at 2-1. Or take, obviously, Kelce at 2-1. It doesn't really matter. You're picking next to yourself. Here, I'm looking at, there's 2 running backs I would want as my RB1, and that would be either Nick Chubb or Aaron Jones. Team 10 could go double running back and give me neither of them, but then give me Travis Kelce. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm going to go with one of the running backs just to be safe, so I get one of the guys I like at RB1, and then I can look at either a tight end or a wide receiver at 202 and try to get a top player at those positions. I like Nick Chubb a little better than Aaron Jones, so I'm going to go ahead and pick Nick Chubb here at 109, and let's see how it worked out. Pick 10, we had Aaron Jones, and then 201 is DeAndre Hopkins. So that puts Travis Kelce right back on my board. I don't expect to get him in round 2 anytime, but I'm just going to cut this one short, take 15 seconds, and take Travis Kelce and run with it because I was not expecting him to fall. And if I get Nick Chubb and Travis Kelce in a league, I'm not complaining at all.
Hey, I don't blame you. Just, we talk about different strategies. Was there any thought to go double receivers there? Not as in wide receiver, but double up with Devontae Adams or DeAndre Hopkins and Travis Kelce. I know you guys are big fans of running back, so it's probably something more I might tend to do in the later rounds, but something definitely interesting. What are your thoughts there?
You see, it's something I've been experimenting with. I have done a little bit of the 0 running back type strategy and taken 2 receivers or a tight end and a receiver, and it's all right, but I almost like having that solid RB1 still, especially because I like Nick Chubb just as much as someone like Jonathan Taylor and Ezekiel Elliott, and he tends to fall a little further down. So if I have Nick Chubb there especially, I like taking him and then a receiver or a tight end.
Gotcha. Well, after you, Austin Eckler went, followed by Stephon Diggs, then Antonio Gibson, Devontae Adams, Joe Mixon, Calvin Ridley, which puts me on the clock at pick 2 or round 2, pick 9. Top guys on the board are DK Metcalf, Najee Harris, AJ Brown, Patrick Mahomes. I hate this.
This is
I
a tough spot, I'll admit.
No, I took Derrick Henry, and I'm regretting it because I would definitely go AJ Brown here, but I don't want to double up with the Titans offense in the first 2 rounds. Najee Harris, it's still too rich for my blood to go this high in the second round. Decaf
DK
Metcalf, that's the
Metcalf.
name. He's very interesting for me here at the wide receiver spot. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, not loving George Kittle. Still too early for him. Maybe coming back around. I would consider him. Oh, this is tough.
Now, let me say, this is why in these situations people would consider Patrick Mahomes, because A.J. Brown would be my favorite option too, but not if you also have Derrick Henry. And I get what your arguments for everybody else, but I still think it's too early for Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I agree. Patrick Mahomes is going to be really tempting if he's sitting there at 3-2.
Yeah.
For sure. So I'm just going to go with my guy, Mr. No Caffeine himself, Decaf Metcalf. Not my favorite pick of the draft. I'm already not loving my team, but there's still a whole long list of the draft to go. So there's plenty of options here. After me went Najee Harris and then Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so 2 running backs. I'm back on the clock with the second pick in the 3rd round. I did just mention Patrick Mahomes, did also mention George Kittle. And then maybe a guy as a flyer would be Justin Jefferson, just because I do have a huge man crush on Justin Jefferson. But I take him in a lot of mock drafts, so I think I'm going to do something a little bit different. I am definitely an advocate for the late round quarterback 100%. I hate drafting quarterbacks this high, but I also started this draft off by doing something I wouldn't do by taking Derrick Henry over Dalvin Cook because, again, the point of mock drafting is be prepared for all the different scenarios. And maybe it's because of how the round 2 went. I'm already flustered, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to pull the trigger. I'm going to take Patrick Mahomes. Again, I probably wouldn't advise this if I was, grading myself on my own mock draft. Uh, but let's get a little risky. A.J. Brown went next, followed by DeAndre Swift, then Justin Jefferson, George Kittle, Darren Waller, back-to-back tight ends in the third round, Chris Carson, and now George is on the clock after taking Travis Kelce the previous round, so short of a wide receiver. Or are you looking for another running back here to lock up the 2 running back positions?
Now you see top running backs on the board are J.K. Dobbins, David Montgomery, and Josh Jacobs. So out of those 3, the one I like the best is David Montgomery. And there's only 2 picks between my pick now and the pick after that. I'm thinking if I end up stuck with Josh Jacobs or Miles Sanders even, I'm okay with that at RB2. So because of that, I'm thinking I'm going to go wide receiver and bring up my first wide receiver here. Top wide receivers on the board are Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, and Allen Robinson. We also have Mike Evans in there, but I'm not a huge fan of all the traffic in that offense, so I'm knocking Mike Evans off my board right away. I think if we knew who the starting quarterback for Chicago was, and it was Justin Fields, I would think Allen Robinson a little bit more, although he has been a very consistent and good wide receiver under the radar for the last few years. My favorite is the best route runner of this group, and that's Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen has been consistent. He might not always put up those 20, 30-point weeks, but if you're building a team of consistency, Keenan Allen always seems to get you the solid 15 points a week. So I'm just going to take that and use Travis Kelce basically as my boom receiver there at tight end and build around that. So after that, I did lose out on J.K. Dobbins and David Montgomery like I was worried about, but it's okay. I'm going to go back to running back because in round 4 and only having one running back, I want to pick up my second one. So the top running backs then would be Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, and Darrell Henderson. I never really figured out where to put Darrell Henderson in this conversation. What do you think about him here? Just to tangent, because I have some time to kill here, Cody.
For sure. Real quick, love the Keenan Allen pick.
Mm-hmm.
Was actually considering him at round 3, pick 2. Was a little bit too early, so I didn't pull the trigger. But definitely a guy I love for this year. Definitely an elite route runner. Justin Herbert, I think he could be posed for a big season. But back to your running back situation, Darrell Henderson is interesting because we know the Rams are going to run the ball. They love to run the ball. Darrell Henderson hasn't looked terrible when healthy running the ball in LA, and they don't have Malcolm Brown anymore. He's on the Dolphins, and Cam Akers is hurt. So it's undrafted or late round guys competing for spots. So you'd think he'd have a little bit bigger of a workload. Still a little bit too early for me on Darrell Henderson. For me, he's still a round 5 or later guy just because of his injury history. I'll give you my 2 cents on what I would do in your shoes. Take it or leave it. It's up to you. I would go Josh Jacobs here. I know we were pretty down on him in our way too early running back rankings. But the more you think about it, Josh Jacobs, he's going to be a big part of the offense. They brought in Kenyon Drake. Yes, I still think it'll be Josh Jacobs' role as the quote-unquote number 1 guy. It is definitely a fly around. I would probably lean Josh Jacobs here, but I could definitely see also being a homer and taking Miles Sanders. That's another tough decision. I feel like this 10-round draft is actually more difficult to do than the 12-round drafts we've been doing because, we're getting stuck in these random tiers.
Yeah, you're almost between tiers here at running. It's really interesting to look at. Man. I mean, I would think I was leaning Miles Sanders beforehand. I don't know. I hear that this is all just camp rumor. They say he's been struggling. I like his outlook a little bit because with Jalen Hurts coming in there being a rushing quarterback, a lot of times you'll see a solid running back to go along with that rushing quarterback because they're worried about all these options. Takes a guy out of the box essentially for the running back. Josh Jacobs does worry me a little bit with the running back additions there in Vegas, but I am still going to lean Josh Jacobs here. I'll take him as my RB2. Honestly, for a man that used to be picked at the end of the first round or in the second round, to have him fall to round 4, knowing his potential, is actually a great pick. If he ends up falling into the fourth round in a lot of these drafts, I'm not too worried about missing. It's just almost nitpicking who you think is going to be a little better between people like Darrell Henderson, Miles Sanders, and Josh Jacobs. After that, we had Allen Robinson come off the board, then Mike Evans, CeeDee Lamb. Miles Sanders fell to pick 6 in the fourth round, and then Terry McLaurin. And the second quarterback off the board was Josh Allen, right before Cody is up in round 4.
I hate this pick.
You've hated every pick
I
you've
am
made so far, I feel like.
I'm not loving this 2 spot at all this year. And I was really hoping that CeeDee Lamb would fall for me. Again, this is why you don't look at the little line that says who's where your pick is, and then right after you, because I was supposed to get CeeDee Lamb. He went 2 picks after George, 3 picks after George, I should say. So here we're debating Darrell Henderson, Julio Jones, and that's pretty much it on this board. You know, I could maybe reach for a guy here, but there's not even a guy worth reaching for at this point. This is like a terrible spot. Chris Godwin, maybe not a huge fan of his, but he could easily be the number 1 guy. I know Mike Evans just went, but it could easily be Chris Godwin. I already have Derrick Henry, so taking Julio is putting a lot of faith in that Titans offense. But I think I don't trust Darrell Henderson yet. I do think I'm going to lean Julio Jones here. I'll double up on the Titans offense. Should have just took Dalvin Cook, and then my whole life would have been better. But I didn't. Live and you learn. I'll go Julio, and hopefully he stays healthy and lives up to his, end of round 1, beginning of round 2 numbers that he is. And hopefully he learns to catch touchdowns in Tennessee, because he has struggled to catch touchdowns in Atlanta since Calvin Ridley showed up. So here's to a big season for Julio Jones. I'll make that to wrap up my 4th round pick. Then Darrell Henderson went right next, followed by Chris Godwin. And we're back to me. And my goodness, this has been not a fun draft at all. I was hoping Henderson would fall. I don't know why I thought he would, because no one has fallen to me, especially when Team 1 has taken now 4 running backs.
That's a bold strategy, Cotton.
That's a bold try. They've taken 4 running backs. I was hoping they would go, double wide receiver, take a quarterback, and I would get Darrell Henderson.
I mean, taking 3 running backs in the first 3 rounds is not crazy. Taking 4, that's just interesting, because you can only start 3.
For sure. Now, he did take Henderson and Najee Harris. I mean, it is just a computer, but they are some big flyers, so maybe he'll look to trade one, or he'll just have, 3 out of 4 hits, which wouldn't be a bad if 3 out of your 4 first-round picks hit. So I'm back on the clock. This, again, I'm going to complain again, but I mean, I would love Kyler Murray, but I already have Patrick Mahomes. I'm not sold on Amari Cooper. I would have loved to have CeeDee Lamb. I'm not big on Amari Cooper this year. Robert Woods is interesting. He is the number 1 guy. Some people might say it's Cooper Kupp. I tend to believe it would be Robert Woods be the number 1 guy. I like Matt Stafford. But I think I'm actually going to go running back here, since I already have 2 wide receivers. I need to grab a running back here since I only have 1. And it's going to be a little bit of a flyer. I'm going to go with the guy down in Miami, Myles Gaskin. They haven't brought anyone in of a big name. Yes, they brought in Malcolm Brown, but I expect Myles Gaskin to still be the starter. He looked good. He showed he can catch out of the backfield. So hopefully he continues on to his another breakout season. Myles Gaskin in the 5th round, pretty good value. The team is shaping up. It's going to be a pretty good team, I still think, even though I'm complaining a lot. Amari Cooper did go next, followed by Travis Etienne, Lamar Jackson, Robert Woods, Deontay Johnson, Kyler Murray, and George is on the clock. Probably a little upset that Deontay Johnson just went 2 picks ahead of him. So we'll see what your thoughts are. Again, this is not as fun as the last time we did a mock draft.
This is stressful, honestly. And I mean, yeah, I'm a little upset that Deontay Johnson and Bobby Trees went off the board. I'm a little bit more upset that Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray went off the board. I was thinking about pulling a strategy like you and take one of those high-end rushing quarterbacks in round 5 and getting somebody else then on the turn, probably another wide receiver. Now we're playing to hit the reset button again. 2 of the top 5 on the board right now are tight ends. I'm obviously filled at the tight end spot with Travis Kelce. Not interested in drafting a tight end for the flex. I'll let someone else have at that. So then we're looking at the top quarterback on the board was Dak Prescott. I don't exactly love Dak Prescott quite this early just because of him coming off the injury. If I'm going to get a quarterback this early, I want somebody with some more rushing potential like a Lamar Jackson or a Kyler Murray. So I'm probably going to let that position ride for a while.
Yep. Agreed.
So we're looking at wide receivers. DJ Moore is an interesting decision because there's a lot of debate I've seen in the fantasy community lately on, do you take DJ Moore or do you wait another round or two and take Robbie Anderson? And I don't even know how to answer that question. I love DJ Moore. I think this could be the best season of DJ Moore's career, having Curtis Samuel out of there now and hopefully having a better quarterback in Sam Darnold. But I still like Robbie Anderson a lot too, especially because he's played with Sam Darnold before. So that's a tough one. If I stay away from that, I'm looking at Adam Thielen, former Mr. All Reliable, who would just get a lot of catches and used to be a much higher than 5th round pick in fantasy drafts. I'd be looking for a little bit of a turnaround out of him. The other LA wide receiver, Cooper Kupp, and then Kenny Golladay, if you want to go a little bit more of a flyer. This is tough. I'm with you. This does not seem as fun as some of these 12 teamers we've done before. I honestly am going to lean towards another guy who's been reliable in the past, similar to what I did with Keenan Allen. That'll be Adam Thielen. I'll take the risk with him here in the 5th round. Not that it's probably that much of a risk this late. And we'll see if he turns around here. Following me was DJ Moore, the other guy I was really leaning on there. He was my second choice there. And then Kareem Hunt, the next running back on the board there, came off. So now we're up here in round 6. A very balanced draft strategy so far with 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a tight end. Still keeping quarterback off the board. I'm not worried about taking Dak here in round 6. Running backs on the board here, I'm looking at Mike Davis. I'm more like Mike Davis if I would have waited a little bit longer on a running back. Could be another, puts up a solid 10 points a week guy, but I'm looking for someone with a little bit more boom value here at this point. Chase Edmonds, who is now marred by the whole James Conner thing we talked about in the news earlier in this episode even. And then there's Javonte Williams and James Robinson. Javonte Williams, we don't know what's happening in Denver between him and Melvin Gordon. I've been kind of shying away from that whole backfield because I don't know what's going to happen. If I can get them in around 7 or 8, I might take them, but I've seen them both going around rounds 5 and 6, and that's a little too rich for my blood. I would rather have someone like a James Robinson in that case. If I go over to wide receivers, I still got Kupp and Golladay, who I talked about in the last round. And if Cody knows me at all, I think you have an idea of where I'm going to go here. I want to see if you can guess it.
Oh, wow. So I feel like the guy I think you're going to take isn't the guy you're going to take because I feel like I've made the comment before. I feel like you have this guy every year and you're like, I've had him once. I think you're going to sneakily take Tyler Lockett.
Wrong wide receiver.
Wrong wide receiver. So then it's probably Cooper Kupp.
It's Cooper Kupp, yes. One of the guys who I've had a fantasy man crush with in the past is Cooper Kupp. I'm going to take him.
You've had one with Tyler Lockett. I don't care what you say.
I have had Tyler Lockett one time, but I don't know where you're coming from, but that's fine. That's fine. So after Cooper Kupp, we had rookie tight end Kyle Pitts. I totally thought you just took
Kyle Pitts. I can't even read the draft board. I was like, we just talked about Cooper Kupp, and you took Kyle Pitts.
Got to taking Kyle Pitts after already taking Travis Kelce. Now that's a bold strategy. Anyway, we got Kyle Pitts off after me, and then Dak Prescott, Tyler Lockett, and Kenny Golladay followed that. Mark Andrews, the other tight end, and then Chase Edmonds, bringing it back around to Cody in round 6. Good old round 6, pick 9.
Nice. Solid pick here. not a lot of names I love on the board. According to Sleeper, the top guy is TJ Hawkinson. I took a quarterback early, so I think it's not smart to take a tight end here, even though I think TJ Hawkinson is the last of the, I don't like to say like tier two, like your, there's the big three, and then there's your Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, TJ Hawkinson. I would have taken him over Kyle Pitts, but I'm not going to take a tight end here. It's pretty much for me, I'm going to take another wide receiver. George is probably like, please let Mike Davis fall to me here. We'll see about that in the 7th round. Here, it's Jamar Chase, the rookie we talked about, but I did mention they have a 3-headed monster. I do like their options here. I don't know how many shares of Jamar Chase I'll actually be able to get a hold of in redraft leagues this year, just because he's going as the number 1 guy. And honestly, I think for most of the season, he'll be number 3. He might surprise. He might come on as number 2, but I like T. Higgins, and I'm not ruling out Tyler Boyd just yet. So there's 2 names here that I'm a big fan of at the wide receiver position. One is Brandon Ayuk. I still, to this day, wish he could have ended up in green and gold, but Kyle Shanahan will definitely use that guy. Someone compared him to Devontae Adams this past week. I think we're getting a little too quick on, I don't know why we have to do this with young players, why we, like, Helpy, this year's Devontae Adams. Put some respect on what Devontae Adams did last year and stop putting so much pressure on these young guys. Just like saying Carson Wentz is Peyton Manning pre-snap, Aaron Rodgers post-snap during his rookie year. Maybe we shouldn't do that. And the other guy is Odell Beckham Jr. I know there's a lot of people out there who are like out on him because he's been injured for so often, but he's back fully healthy. He'll probably slide into the number 1 option there. It'll be a battle between him and Jarvis Landry. I like his upside. I think he has the potential to be a top 10 wide receiver here that you can get in the 6th round. So I'm definitely considering him, but I am going to go a little bit younger and take my guy Brandon Ayuk, just because this draft has been all about guys I normally don't take. I normally end up with Deebo Samuel and not Brandon Ayuk. So I'm going to go Brandon Ayuk here, and we'll see what happens in the 7th round. Maybe I'll double up wide receiver and take Odell Beckham Jr. just because the heck of it. Justin Herbert went next, followed by TJ Hawkinson. So I have currently on my roster Derrick Henry, DK Metcalf, Patrick Mahomes, Julio Jones, Myles Gaskin, and Brandon Ayuk. Definitely an interesting team here. I love taking wide receivers. It's definitely my downfall in fantasy drafting here. So I'm definitely like, in my head, I'm like, ooh, Odell Beckham, ooh, Chase Claypool. And then I'm like 6 weeks for Michael Thomas. He might be on the move. That one could be a fun one here. But I definitely think I need to get a 3rd running back because there isn't that many options left that are super decent. I think there's the solid guy in Mike Davis, even though they did just sign Deontay Foreman. I don't think that changes much for Mike Davis as the number 1 starter. James Robinson, do you want that workload? Javonte Williams, I know he's expected to be the starter, but you also have Melvin Gordon there, who's no slouch at running back. You know what? Nope. I'm taking a wide receiver. I'm taking Odell Beckham. Screw it. I'm taking Odell Beckham. We're going to have fun with this team. We're going to go for some high upside. Hopefully a running back comes back to me in pick 8 of or round 8 of the draft. George is hurt because after me, Jamar Chase went, followed by Michael Thomas, then T. Higgins, Russell Wilson, Melvin Gordon, and then Mike Davis, 1 pick before George. George is in the same boat as me with only 2 running backs. We'll see if he is bold enough to go with another receiving option, or maybe he'll just pan out and take a running back that he doesn't love. We'll see.
No, I mean, honestly, I can't be too mad. If 2 running backs went, and you told me 2 running backs went, my guess was going to be, it was going to be 2 of 3 of Javonte Williams, James Robinson, Mike Davis. My top 2 were James Robinson and Mike Davis, so only Mike Davis went, which makes this pick semi-easy for me, I guess, and I'm thinking it's going to be James Robinson. I'll take a look over the board really quick to see that we got Chase Claypool and Juju Smith-Schuster on the board there, as well as Courtland Sutton, who we both know that we like the upside of, and especially in round 7, that's not a bad pick. But like you said, I have 2 running backs on my roster right now. It's Nick Chubb and Josh Jacobs. So I'm going to stick with going with James Robinson there. And at least the good news is if they decide he's not the starter, I have 2 running backs in front of him that are hopefully going to be solid running backs. So that's good. After me, we had Cortland Sutton and Javonte Williams go to team 10. Back to me on the board here. So Cortland Sutton was my guy was going to hope was going to fall there. Obviously, he didn't. So now we're here where I'm thinking, do I want to look at quarterback again? We have Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and Jalen Hurts as the top 3. Round 8 and 9 is where I start thinking about it. We've had a lot of quarterbacks come off the board now. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
3 teams
7
without a quarterback.
Yep.
3 teams without a quarterback.
7 quarterbacks, 3 teams without it. So if I want to jump them on, say, a Jalen Hurts with running ability, I can do that. But I don't know if it's much of a jump over an Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Matt Stafford. So going back to wide receiver, I like Chase Claypool a lot. And then I also like Deebo Samuel and Robbie Anderson. I just talked earlier about the whole DJ Moore versus Robbie Anderson argument. And I think because of that, how many rounds did I wait since I talked about that? Has it been 2 or 3?
I'm trying to look where DJ Moore just went real quick.
Round 5. So it's actually been 3 rounds.
Right. He went pick 10 in round 5. So now we're in the second pick in round 8. So
yeah. So I mean, I really can't argue with that kind of value when I'm considering Robbie Anderson may be a wide receiver 1, or he's still a big play threat in Carolina. I did draft a little bit. I don't want to say safe players, but players who are very consistent. Robbie Anderson, I think, has the ability to be a boom potential kind of guy, especially in a good matchup. But so does Deebo Samuel. So I'm between those 2 right now, I think. Because I made the argument about Robbie Anderson before, I think I'm going to go with Robbie Anderson here. And we'll see what happens after this, going back around to Cody. After me, we had Ronald Jones come off the board, then Chase Claypool, Raheem Mostert, DJ Chark, your boy Aaron Rodgers, and Juju Smith-Schuster.
Well, here we are again, sitting with this pick, regretting my last pick. Seems to be a theme. I really thought Rojo would fall back. That's why I ended up pivoting to OBJ. So story of this draft is don't always bank on guys falling that you think might, because it rarely happens.
Especially on the long term.
Especially on a long term. That's great advice here. Man, this is super tough for me now. It's, Deebo Samuel, I talk about all the time, but I already took Brandon Ayuk, so he's off the board. Damian Harris, I think he has some real potential to be, the lead guy in New England, but until they make Mac Jones the starter, Cam Newton is a threat to steal goal line, and that's the most valuable. Devontae Smith, the dude's already dealing with injuries, so that's a tough one for me. There's just not a lot of options, I think, here. I hate to reach this far. I could maybe pivot to a tight end and take Dallas Goedert, who could be a sleeper, but until I know what's actually happening with Zach Ertz, that's tough to tell. Definitely a tough one here. Let me hear your thoughts on looking at my team, what you're thinking here. I can tell by your facial expression that you didn't want me to ask this question because you're stumped as well. But sure, while I'm tilting, trying to think out who I'm going to take, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Interesting. So I think because you have 2 running backs on your team, and Myles Gaskin and Derrick Henry, I was looking at the running backs pretty heavily. The guys I like would be, I'm staying away from New England's backfield, so I don't really like Damian Harris here too much. David Johnson's one. David Johnson should be the starter in Houston, but I'm not the biggest David Johnson guy. You know that. Trey Sermon is the person I thought you were going to lean because you have a lot of faith in Trey Sermon there in San Francisco and him being able to itch out some carries. And then there's 2 guys underneath them that I am actually pretty high on. One of them is Zach Moss. I think Buffalo's going to have to run the ball more this year, and I think Zach Moss is going to be the guy to do it if they're going to do it successfully. and the other one is Michael Carter. Michael Carter has been the rookie that I've been vying for a lot. I've drafted him in a lot of my mocks because I think he's going to take over the starting role in New York, and the Jets' offense is going to be better. So I would probably be between Zach Moss and Michael Carter here to get yourself a running back 3. You have any idea after I gave you a minute there to think?
No, I do like Zach Moss a lot. He was the guy when I said I don't want to reach. It was the guy I was thinking of. Um, I mean, it's not that much of a reach because I'm probably going to take him with my next pick. But just because I do think Zach Moss will be there, I love drafting wide receivers. I know he's already dealing with injury issues, but I'm going to take Devontae Smith, the top guy in Philadelphia. I think he's already at this point beaten out Jalen Reagor despite the injuries.
Mm-hmm.
I know George thinks Travis Fulgham is as good as Alshon Jeffrey. If you caught that way back early at the beginning of this podcast, I think Devontae Smith has beaten him out, and Dippin' Dots receiver Greg Ward. So a number one wide receiver in the 8th round. I know he's a rookie. He might be up and down, but I'm still going to go here with Devontae Smith. And thank God, Jerry Jeudy and Deebo Samuel went next. I was going to say if Zach Moss goes here, I'm just going to quit. He didn't. I'm going to make my pick quick because I've just spent the last full clock talking about guys. I desperately need a running back. I only have 2 on my roster compared to 5 wide receivers in the first 9 rounds. Again, I know I have a problem drafting wide receivers, but I think Zach Moss could be a sleeper guy late rounds that could end up being a top 12 running back for all the reasons George mentioned. I saw a beat reporter from Buffalo posted on Twitter, and I think it might even have been picked up by BR Gridiron, that Zach Moss has by far looked the best running back out in Buffalo. I was never a huge Devin Singletary fan either. So Zach Moss is my pick. Noah Fant went next, followed by Damian Harris, Dallas Goedert, Jalen Waddle, Trey Sermon, Will Fuller, and George is on the clock. Your guy David Johnson's there. Just saying.
Not going to take David Johnson here. You know, I would much rather wait a few rounds and take Phillip Lindsay and hope Phillip Lindsay is the starter in Houston. That's where I stand on that backfield. But Michael Carter is still there, who that might be a pick. The other idea is to look at, I mean, I don't really like handcuffing guys I don't take in the first 2 rounds, but Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake could both be rostered if I take Kenyon Drake here as well. That would either mean, like, if I see one of them is going to be a more clear-cut starter, I have either one, or if one of them goes down, the other one's going to be solid. I honestly think that it's pretty safe that Josh Jacobs is going to be majority of the carries and the guy who you want to start pretty much every week, while Kenyon Drake would just be a goal line guy, maybe an occasional flex starter, or a guy you just want if Josh Jacobs gets hurt. Jacobs does tend to miss a few games every year. So now I'm in the situation of, do I want to play safe and take Kenyon Drake and lock up the Las Vegas backfield? Do I want to get the potential boom in Michael Carter? If I look at wide receivers really fast, anyone that really stands out to me, I
You thinking
mean,
quarterback at all? I know you were thinking Jalen Hurts last round.
it's true, Jalen Hurts is still out there. The only person that went since I last looked was Aaron Rodgers. But now, again, I'm still between Tom Brady, Jalen Hurts, Matt Stafford. There's 3 there with 2 picks between me. I can take somebody to make sure I don't lose them on the turn to team 10. So I'm going to go with the running back first. Still debating between Michael Carter and Kenyon Drake. What would you do here, Cody?
Kenyon Drake or Michael Carter. At this point, you already have Josh Jacobs. Again, really, you're only handcuffing Derek or Dalvin Cook because of his injury history, and Ezekiel Elliott because of how well Tony Pollard looked last year. I mean, those are the 2 main guys you're handcuffing. At this point, I wouldn't worry about a handcuff. I would lean Michael Carter. But just real quick, back to the quarterbacks here. Now, granted, unless Team 10 takes 2 quarterbacks back to back, which is highly unlikely, I would definitely put Jalen Hurts and Tom Brady a tier ahead of Matt Stafford, even though I love Matt Stafford. Just for fantasy-wise, I think they're both posed for big seasons with Jalen Hurts' running ability. And with an extra game, Tom Brady will probably be pushing 40 to 50 touchdowns again this year. So something to keep in mind for the turn.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I see Team 10 taking 2 quarterbacks, but now that we mentioned it, it could happen. I'm going to take Michael Carter because I like the boom potential. We'll lock up another running back, and we're going to cross our fingers here that not 2 quarterbacks get taken. We're looking at it, 1 quarterback got taken. We had Leonard Fournette go at 9-10, and then Tom Brady went and the first pick of the 10th round, making my decision easy for this one, being Jalen Hurts. They made the decision for me. I'll take it quick. And we're going to go back here to Cody. We had Curtis Samuel off the board next, and then David Johnson, Tyler Boyd, Brandon Cooks, Kenyon Drake, and Jarvis Landry. Cody, back up. Do you hate it again?
No, I did not. The guy
Oh,
wanted to come all the way back to me. Did. I don't know if the 10th round is just pick your team round for us here at the Couch GMs here. Um, but another running back I'm pretty high on is A.J. Dillon. Not that I don't love Aaron Jones. I think Aaron Jones is by far worth where he's being drafted. End of the first round, beginning of the second round, I think he's the top guy. But I do think the Packers will use 2 running backs quite often. I think Aaron Jones will be used more as a pass catcher this year, leaving A.J. Dillon to definitely get more carries. We've seen in the past how Jamal Williams had weeks where he was a solid starter. He was always a safety net. If Aaron Jones went down, you could always rely on Jamal Williams. I think in the 10th and 11th round, and I hate saying this because, one, you might just say it's because I'm a Packers fan. Um, but honestly, I think A.J. Dillon is one of the best double-digit round picks. And by round 10, I am taking A.J. Dillon. And anyone that's in my fantasy leagues that are listening to this and that know what I just said and take him in round 9, I will not be your friend and not send you any trade offers this year. Just kidding. I'll definitely send you trade offers. But I did go A.J. Dillon. Matt Stafford went next. So the first team to take 2 quarterbacks is off the board. Definitely did not mean to scroll the screen up. Sorry for you guys watching here. We do have 2 rounds left because we're not taking kickers and defenses. Logan Thomas went after me. I still need a tight end. And there's part of me that just wants to double up with Packers players here because Big Bob Tunyon Funyon is available. I know there'll be some regression when it comes to his touchdown catches. I highly doubt he'll have 11 again this year. But, 6 or 7 is still good. Even 5 would be solid. Other tight ends I do like would be Tyler Higbee just because of, there's no longer Gerald Everett there. He could be solid. And then Irv Smith Jr. is another guy I like, but I might, if I was going to go for Irv Smith, I'd probably wait and just try to get him with my last pick. So the question is, do I go homer or do I take a flyer on someone else? I just took a Packers player, so I'm not going to take 2 of them. I'm going to grab a guy here who I think, if healthy, could be another solid option on a high flying offense, and that will be wide receiver because it's
why
not a
not?
draft if I'm not taking lots of wide receivers, and that is wide receiver Mike Williams. If healthy, I think he'll be a solid number 2 wide receiver for the Chargers. I think they're going to put up a lot of points. So that's what I'm going to go with. Obviously, I took Patrick Mahomes, so I'm not even looking at taking a second quarterback in this draft. But Joe Burrow and Ryan Tannehill did go the next 2 picks after me. Ryan Tannehill is definitely a solid guy to keep in mind if you need to take a second running back, or second quarterback. But I could say running back because he does have mobility that's underrated and people forget about often. James Conner went next. Laviska Shenault, Antonio Brown, Corey Davis, and George, you are on the clock with your second to last pick. I think your team is pretty much set with every position, so it's a free game for you just to take a flyer on somebody. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I was just looking back to see if there's any other positions I need to take. So I'm not going to take a backup tight end in these last 2 rounds because I have Travis Kelce. If I had taken a tight end late, like you did, I may think about taking a second one. Quarterback, with Jalen Hurts, I may think about taking a second quarterback just because there's a little bit more uncertainty there. With you having Patrick Mahomes, if I had someone up there, I wouldn't take a backup quarterback. I would just look for somebody on free agency. So there's a couple of guys in quarterback that I still like. You could always take Trevor Lawrence there. I like Baker Mayfield as a backup as well. And there's always that Deshaun Watson question out there since he's starting to sneak back up the ADP board and back up the draft board because he's practicing again. You don't know if he's going to get moved, but if he does play, he's been a top 10 quarterback almost every single year. But because there's a couple options I like, and there's only 2 picks between me in the 11th and 12th round, I'm going to take my other flyer here now first. And there's a guy we talked about in a lot of length, I think, the last time we did a mock that I like here, and that's Michael Pittman. Especially with the
Great
news
pick.
that Carson Wentz is probably going to be back for week 1. If not, he's not going to miss a lot of time. I still love Michael Pittman. The fact that he's falling to round 11 is insane to me. I would have taken him over a lot of the wide receivers in the last few rounds. Despite me, I still do like your Mike Williams pick. I mean, Mike Williams, I feel like I always end up taking him in the mid rounds every single year because you never know if he's going to have that breakout year where he's going to catch all these long touchdowns, especially now having a good quarterback in the helm. But Michael Pittman, I'm going to take here, and we're going to see who comes around to me here in round 12. And I still have my choice of quarterback because Marquise Brown, another guy who I do like in these rounds, comes off in the end of round 11, and the top of round 12 is Mike Gesicki, the tight end. So I'm going to round out my quarterback room because I took a quarterback pretty late, and I'm going to settle on the rookie. I'm going to go bold with 2 of these picks because I think Trevor Lawrence could be a big breakout. I like how he looks on his college tape. I'm hoping it translates into the NFL. So what hurts? I'm going to have hopefully 2 quarterbacks.
What hurts? Nice.
Nice. I didn't even plan that. We're gonna hook up Hurts and Lawrence and see if I can get a good quarterback start every single week. Got a little bit of a tight end run here coming back around to Cody. We had Irv Smith come off the board after Lawrence, and then Robert Funyon Tunyon. I'm sorry I didn't get back around to you. And Tyler Higbee, the other guy you were talking about. Devin Singletary then went, and then Rob Gronkowski and Nyheim Hines. You got to take a tight end. I'm thinking you don't want to let that one sit. So where are you thinking here, Cody, with your last pick?
Well, I'm thinking wide receiver.
Of course you are.
I've taken 5 of them. I've taken 4 running backs and 5 wide receivers. That's pretty balanced for me. Normally it's like 5 and 6. So
You're right.
wide receiver is pretty much sealed for me. Mentioned last pick. I was really hoping for Irv Smith to come back around. Just not my luck this draft. So if I'm looking at all the tight ends available, there's 3 names that stick out to me. Adam Troutman, fan of his. I think he'll take a big step up this year, especially with Michael Thomas out. I think he could be easily the number 1 target in New Orleans. Because go ahead, name 3 more players that are wide receivers in New Orleans. I'll wait.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. See, Evan Ingram. There's always, the Evan Ingram. He was been drafted as like tight end 5 or 6 the last couple seasons. He's now not even being drafted at this point. So I could always take a flyer on him. And then Cole Kmet, the rookie from last year, tight end in Chicago. Yes, they still have Jimmy Graham, but I expect Cole Kmet to take a bigger leap this year. But at this point, I mean, all these tight ends are flyers. I could easily make a case for Anthony Ferkser, Gerald Everett. I talked about him being with Russell Wilson, and they always have a tight end that's viable. Even Will Dissly is a tight
Any
end.
thoughts to Jonnu Smith because of the Hunter Henry news?
Again, I like Jonnu Smith. We talked about him lining up at running back. It's just Cam Newton. I don't expect them to throw more than 20, 25 times a game. Definitely a considerable option here. Because I've been taking a lot of flyers, I'm going to again take a flyer here on Adam Troutman. Just have some fun with this team. And then the wide receiver I would have taken,
of course,
if I didn't skip the tight end, was going to be Darnell Mooney. So he went there. If you're on YouTube, you can see the full draft board. I'll recap my team. That's Derrick Henry, DK Metcalf, Patrick Mahomes, Julio Jones, Myles Gaskins, Brandon Ayuk, OBJ, Devontae Smith, Zach Moss, AJ Dillon, Mike Williams, and Adam Troutman. Overall, quick feedback on my own team. I know I complained a lot about the pick situation. I think I made the most of it. I do like my depth, especially at wide receiver. I think I have some solid running backs I don't think any of the guys outside Derrick Henry are going to be consistently big gamers for me. But at the end of the day, if your RB2 gets you 10 to 15 points a week, that's a solid week. And I think all three of those guys have potential to do that. It is a flyer on Adam Troutman, but after literally Mark Andrews, every tight end's a flyer. So waiting for him, a guy that has some big upside, I'm definitely willing to risk it on that. If we had an extra round, I might have taken a safer tight end or, make a move before the season to a guy like a Jared Cook or a Johnny Smith, someone who has a little bit more experience to see how it goes. But at this point, I'll roll Adam Troutman out there week 1 against the Green Bay Packers. George, why don't you read your team? Give me a quick breakdown of your own thoughts, and then if you want to give some thoughts on mine, and then I'll do the same for you.
Okay. So my team, I had Nick Chubb, Travis Kelce, Keenan Allen, Josh Jacobs, Adam Thielen, Cooper Kupp, James Robinson, Robbie Anderson, Michael Carter, Jalen Hurts, Michael Pittman, and Trevor Lawrence. So I didn't know how this team was going to shake out in the first few rounds, going a little bit different than I usually would, especially waiting until round 4 for a second running back. Normally, if I'm trying to play it safe or if I'm recommending somebody who hasn't had a lot of draft experience, I wouldn't wait that long to take your second running back. I'd be looking more at the round 3 guys like a Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Chris Carson, even the Dobbins and Montgomery, who I was, debating there in round 3 before I took Keenan Allen. But I think I like how it turned out, especially having James Robinson and Michael Carter fall to me later in the draft. I think I'll definitely have 2 solid running backs every week with that grouping. I did like Jalen Hurts better than Tom Brady and even, people like Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, just because of the rushing ability. So I like being able to wait until round 10 to take Jalen Hurts a little later than
Homer.
a little later than I would usually take a quarterback as well or recommend. I would start looking at it round 8, round 9, but love that it fell that far to me. Overall, I like my team. I think there's a good mix of a couple of guys who could be booms and some good consistent players like the Adam Thielen, Keenan Allen, Travis Kelce being basically my wide receiver 1 is nice because you're going to get a big boost over all the other tight ends in the league, except for maybe George Kittle and Darren Waller some weeks. And having him fall to round 2 was also nice. I like how my team turned out. As far as your team, Cody, I'll jump back to that before I hand it back to you. I like how your team turned out. You did actually take, what was it, 6 wide receivers, not 5.
5.
1,
5.
2,
I was
3,
a,
4,
a modest
5,
5.
6. One of them has listed as a flex on the draft board, so there is 6 wide receivers.
Oh, that sounds about right.
But I do like how your team turned out. I think one of my favorite picks is getting Brandon Ayuk in round 6. Brandon Ayuk was actually a league winner for a lot of people last year. And if he's falling that, low on the draft board, he's going to be one of my guys when we talk about that in a few weeks, because that's somebody I want a lot of stock in at that price. And I like that you went a little different than your normal draft strategy and took Patrick Mahomes in round 3. I more like him if I get him by the end of round 3, but round 3 is a good price for him, and it let you show how you can build your team around an early quarterback, since we like to talk about late quarterbacks. I like what you did there, and I think your team's pretty solid.
I appreciate it. Looks like a championship team for me. I'll give you my 2 cents on your team. It's pretty good. Can't complain. I would have liked to seen a different quarterback than Jalen Hurts, but I know you're a homer on him. I was trying to push you for Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady has potential to be a top 5 quarterback next year, and he's going extremely late. Maybe it's just because I'm becoming a Tom Brady fan based on his social game now that he's on social media and left New England. I can't believe I just put that out on the internet.
That's going to
Other
be
than
used
that,
against you later.
for sure. I said a Tom Brady fan, not like because it was internet, not because of his actual,
He's trying to fix it
dominance in
now.
the NFL. Yep, trying to just digging himself a deeper hole. I think you have good balance. I think Adam Thielen, round 5, that's a solid pick. He had just as good of a, well, not just as good of a season, but about as good of a season as Justin Jefferson did last year. And you got him 2 rounds later. Same with Robbie Anderson. I love the value there. I would take him over DJ Moore, and you waited 22 picks for that. So you definitely let the draft board come to you. You didn't make any reaches. So that is a solid pick there. But George, we've had some power outages. This is our second take. Luckily, the power outage happened right before the draft, and you people watching didn't even know it. But it's been a long time. This has been a long one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. There is preseason football this week, so make sure you're checking it out. Hey, we have the new football community over on Facebook. Feel free to join that. If you want to live tweet games, or hey, did you see that play? We'll definitely be in there chatting during the preseason and the regular season. But as always, thank you for listening to this week's episode. I know it was a long one. Thanks for sticking with us. It's always good to be back, but I do miss doing this in person.
Agreed. Maybe we'll get together at some point soon to do another one of those fun episodes in person. But until then, you got us here virtually, and we want you guys to get involved virtually as well. Like Cody said, we have the Couch GMs football community now over on Facebook. Go head over and give it join the group. I'll put the link in the description here of this video. And we want to talk to you guys more than just that even. Give us, talk to us about our teams here today. Ask us some questions about if you have some trades coming up in some dynasty leagues, who you like better in drafts, where we would value certain players. We're here to help you out and make you a championship caliber fantasy owner here for this season and beyond. But yes, thank you all for listening one more time. For Cody Roadcap, I'm George Kurth, and we'll see you all next week.
Boom, nice.